Yeah, but because I just didn't want him to know, and I was more worried about my dad finding out that I was spending time in jail than actually spending time in jail. So it was a big step for us to be able to talk to him like that, because most of us are very positive people in here, and we've had a lot of positive impact on society and life in general. Because we need to. We need to. We need to choose to express all of this as positively as possible. And completely understand that it's easy to want to vent or to share your anguish with other people in a way that you think makes them directly understand how you feel. But I don't think that feel my pain is a great way to deal with other people, man. I don't. I don't. One of the reasons why we were so hesitant to even start a video conversation along these lines is because we're afraid of hurting people by talking about our experiences. And we're afraid of harming people in some way. Even though we've really been thinking about this for years and years and years now and trying to figure out how to frame these things. So no matter what comes out of our face, it's still within the bounds of what we have carefully considered to be acceptable for us to put out in this format. Which is good, because it helps. Some of us feel like this is kind of our way of establishing another layer of control on ourselves, is to let people know what kind of person we are, so everybody keeps an eye on us to make sure we're good and not out there torturing people and stuff like that. Because it's, and that's the really sad thing about it, is that we're capable of that kind of stuff. If the military had wanted me to torture people, I would have very professionally tortured people. And some of us have spent a lot of time and a lot of effort figuring out how to be very good at that kind of stuff. Just in case we ever needed to. That's never been necessary. Of course, we have used it as a try to keep ourselves in line, which is terrible. And that's one of the things that we really had to work on, and are still working on. It's just how we choose to shape ourselves is pretty brutal, and we always gave ourselves carte blanche to do whatever we had to force us to conform to whatever we thought was the right thing to do at the moment, which is awful. And in the end, none of it really helps. Burning yourself repeatedly to teach yourself to ignore the pain of fire. Peeling the skin off your body to make yourself less likely to be subject to pain as an influencer. Toughening up your hands, your head, your body. Working out all the time. Giving your negative aspects free rein as long as there's nobody else around and you're just practicing with weapons. It takes a toll on you. And it doesn't help any. It hasn't made us any less afraid. Used to, when we get stressed out in a room full of people, we would make ourselves feel better by figuring out how how to kill everybody in the room before anybody has a chance to do anything. And that would enable us to calm down. But it's not a super great place to live or be capable of. It's the stuff you do to make yourself feel safe. But it doesn't work. I mean, yes, I think it makes us feel safer than we would otherwise, but it doesn't address the root causes of our fear, and I don't think that that's actually going to go away, because I don't think it's possible. Even if our brain were to heal completely, or if we could somehow surgically replace the damaged parts of our brain, the rest of us still have the memory of the trauma, and the body itself remembers. And it's funny, it's literally easier to walk naked through fire for us than it is to do this. But we feel like it's necessary. It's like, I know it'll help some people. At least in knowing that they're not alone. And that it's not a losing fight. It might be an endless fight, and it might last your entire life, but it's never a fight you have to lose. Yeah, so when we hit Noriega's Panama, I would sneak off school grounds a lot, because we could buy anything. It didn't matter. If you had money and you could reach over the counter, they'd sell you alcohol or pharmaceutical substances or whatever. It was our first introduction to hallucinogens. We were dating this girl at the time, and she wanted to go hang out with us off base. And I guess while we were busy in a store picking up some alcohol, she had run across a street vendor. And I still don't know if she knew what she got, because I didn't know what she got at the time. But what she had bought was half a dozen gel caps, which are small pills that are saturated with LSD. And she was like, "Here, I got these." And I think I licked 5 of them off of her hand. I think she was mad because there was only one left. But we had a very interesting day. I find that LSD is good for us in that it causes us to achieve a sort of unity and coherence that is nearly impossible otherwise. Which could be a bad thing, I guess, if you decided to go badly with it, because it does. I find that LSD and PCP do very similar things for us, and that is that they sort of take off the chains in a positive way. Like, being on LSD allows us to disregard the trauma, really, because it's so enveloping that really we just have to focus on what's going on, because LSD and other hallucinogens, any hallucination you have there is you. That's you. It's your subconscious. It might be your subconscious on the outside world responding to outside stimulus, but all that stuff's coming from inside of you. It's all coming from inside of you, and it's your subconscious talking to you in a way that you normally can't, which is what our hallucinations were anyway. whenever we were hallucinating, or any of ourselves that hallucinate, are listening to our subconsciouses in a way, or are being the subconscious that doesn't have a way to communicate with words. It can only communicate with images and symbols and these ideas that mean more than a word. Because a concept can be multidimensional if its only frame of reference is up here. Once you write it down or try to describe it, then it loses so much of the thing that it means to you. And PCP did the same thing, and both of them took the chains off of our minds and gave us the idea that the only chains that our bodies wear are the ones that we accept, because they do. While under the influence of LSD, I have jumped sideways from a standing position 8 feet to land sideways on a chain link fence with my hands and feet perfectly positioned in the chain links that I picked out to put them into before I jumped sideways, and then I skitter up the chain link fence that is the backdrop of a baseball field sideways. Go over the lip, come back down, skitter back down. My friends are staring at me the whole time. But hey man, the acid just kicked in and I really needed to do something with it. And it just all happens very naturally and organically, and there's no thought in it. It's very zen. And I just do the thing, and nobody's in the way of anybody else, and we're all just happy to be doing this thing. And a lot of times it turns out to be physical activity like that, because that really helps us deal with the body's need to always be doing something to defend us, because we don't know. I mean, it literally wants to walk around all the time like this, and I had to figure out, didn't have to, but we had to figure out ways to make it look normal to walk around with our hands above our waist all the time. Just walk around the office, walk to the bus, walk to school, walk to the train to go to work, walk to a customer's house, knock on the door. Still trying to figure out some way to make it look normal and natural that I just happen to have my hands above my waist. It just... And so really, I cannot stress enough that I think we need to have a national mental health package. Because I know that I'm not the only person out here who's been diagnosed with PTSD and borderline personality disorder and some other stuff over the years. But the fads change and they call you different things. And borderline's a great catch-all because they just hang all kinds of adjectives on it. And they're not getting any help. I have my main sources of PTSD are not living on the streets. It's very hard to live on the streets, and it's very dangerous. But I can see it out there, and everybody else living out there, that just being homeless anywhere in America is enough to give you PTSD. It's enough to give you shell shock. Nothing we have in our lives prepares us to live homeless. The only way you get preparation living homeless is if you grew up homeless. We have to do something about it. I've talked to so many people in the business who spent their lives in Portland in the public mental health business trying to help people, just watching it become a bureaucracy where they don't really try to help people. They try to get as many people as they can enumerated and enlisted in some sort of accounting program so they can prove that they're trying to take care of people while actually not giving them any resources. It's like I was talking to a Portland police officer. Like I was saying, one of my partners allowed us to be good enough to let homeless people camp on the corner of the property so we could keep an eye on them and keep them safe. And we wanted to collect old people and people who have disabilities and people who couldn't really survive that easily on the streets, just to make it easier for them and give them someplace to have their stuff safe and things like that. Because we will, and we're always looking out. And if you pull down the street and decide that you're going to harass somebody who's homeless from your truck, and you yell at them, and then you pull over and you start walking down the sidewalk yelling at them, you are going to face us popping out at you and saying, "Hey man, you can't talk to my people like that." Because I think that's one of the biggest problems with homelessness, is that we treat them like other. We treat them as lesser. We treat them as pariah. They're a nuisance, they're an eyesore, they're something we don't want to look at, like a kid with a bandage around his head. And it makes it very hard for anybody who's homeless to maintain any kind of coherent relationship with society, societal mores, societal structures, because society does not give a fuck about them. That's why these people find it easy to pull down their pants and take a crap in front of you, because that's their value in this society, is that they matter so little they can do that, dude. And it might get them a free night in jail where they have something to eat. We're currently using our prison facilities as mental health institutions. It's just a fact. The company I worked for in Oklahoma got to reclassify people out of institutions because they were mild MMR or they had brain damage and stuff like that. We got to look at these people and say, "Hey man, they weren't competent to stand trial. You need to release them to us so we can take care of them as befits somebody who has these sorts of disabilities and issues." So you get to see a lot of it directly right there. But I mean, that's the thing, is I'm pretty sure that if you are capable of criminal activity in America, then that sort of denotes the fact that you have mental health issues. Because it's an antisocial activity. So if you're going to engage in illicit or immoral activity, then you're going to have mental health issues, man. And it's tough to say, because I'm looking at you guys. I'm looking at guys I've counted on. I'm looking at guys I've worked with in the past. Guys have used me for muscle. Guys that I've used for muscle. Man, we have mental health issues. Yeah, you're great. You're awesome. And you are so good at punching somebody in the face and saying, "Shut up, Jim's talking." But man, we have mental health issues. And the things that cause us to be okay with behaving in this fashion are not healthy for us. In a lot of ways, our serious criminal activities are just us trying to kill ourselves again, man. There's a lot of serious motherfuckers out here. And some of us feel like we gotta kill people for no fucking reason sometimes, now and then, just to show who we are. I know. I have been shot at by those people, and I've had those people be like, "You know what? Nah, I'm not gonna do it today. You almost got me, dude. I almost tried to kill you, but not today." And so, yeah, it's just mental health issues, man. I want to talk about most of the criminal stuff and things like that in sort of another video thread, because a lot of the things that we have really experienced and come to awareness of in our life is just exactly what we're talking about when we look at the way our society has been arranged to benefit some people and not others. And it's sort of an insider's view, and I really wanted to kind of get into that sort of stuff, even though we're terrified to, because it's the kind of thing that would probably get us the most death threats. You know, if coming out as super non-binary, non-gender conforming, some parts of us don't identify as human, some parts of us identify as mineral, some parts of us identify as nature spirits. You know? um, yeah, if that was enough to give me some death threats and things like that, and telling serious criminals that we have mental health issues that they may or may not be willing to acknowledge isn't enough. I think a lot of the things, yeah, it'll be terrifying. It is. I feel like I got a dot on my forehead already. Because this is scary enough. You know, a lot of us feel like if you really wanted to make a case for it, you could use these videos to demonstrate that we were still a danger to society, even though we have never been a danger to society at large. And only dangerous to very specific people for very specific reasons. Some of which are legally mandated. But anyway, I digress. You know, it just seems like just talking about these kinds of things and being open about ourselves in a public forum is enough to get somebody to be able to issue a writ or a mandate that we be incarcerated somewhere against our will for further study, of course. You know, and to see what when you talk about your psych meds, if they really don't. You know. Sorry, we got lost for a second there thinking about it. One time we were on psych meds was when we were being processed out of the Navy. We enlisted, and exactly when we enlisted and how long we were in is still a matter of great internal debate, because our professional selves are very discreet from the rest of us. Like when we had our meltdown, we instantly lost all of our fucking job skills, because none of those guys wanted to be here anymore so bad. It's still very hard to even access their memories. But so yes, we joined the Navy. I think we enlisted before or during God, Desert Storm, because I remember getting a pin for that. Might have been before. But yeah, and we were attached to a command, and it had a lot of issues. We had friends that were willing to physically damage themselves to get out of the command. And it wasn't because we were going to war. It was just because it was. I personally, looking back at it, feel like it was probably the kind of command you're not supposed to have in the military, where a lot of people who look problematic or like they might have issues get sent to one command so everybody can keep an eye on them. We just didn't know we were going to be war, and this command was going to need to be war ready. And so we failed our first operational propulsion plant examination flat out, which is an exam that they give a Navy ship to see if it's capable of performing combat maneuvers under non-combat conditions, under the best conditions, and just failed flat out. And I cannot think of any well-maintained, well-run command anywhere that should have those issues without having something serious to point out about it. Our chief engineer resigned before the first operational propulsion plant examination. And that should tell you, if you know anything about the military. Scotty resigned instead of taking the test to see if the Enterprise was ready to go to war. And so we got ready, and we had some stuff going on in our personal life, and we deployed a couple of times, and we had some more issues in our personal life, and we're really afraid that we were going to hurt somebody because we married somebody who looked like they were just trying to get the most extreme emotional responses they could out of us. We got married with them understanding how we are and that we kind of weren't capable all the time of being monogamous. And they were fine with that. They wanted an open marriage. But then after we got married, they're like, nope, we're monogamous now. And I'm like, cool, we can do this. We can do this, especially we're in the Navy. We're gonna have so little opportunity to even find other people to do stuff with. We can be fucking monogamous. And then they decided that they were gonna cheat on us because that's the thing, is it's not gonna be emotionally manipulative or controlling or anything like that if you don't make it so it's not okay first. It's not taboo. There's nothing wrong with it. And I would have just been like, yay! But yeah, we've always been aware of those kinds of things. When they happen, I woke up in jail in the middle of the night one night, and we could just see this guy's face in our head. Like, oh, that's who's sleeping with our girlfriend right now. And we got released on a technicality the next day, and called our ex-girlfriend and said, hey, why don't you ask our current girlfriend over to your house for a hey, Jim's in jail, we're so sad, we miss him party. And she showed up with the guy, and he looked just like he did in my head. And it might have been that I had seen a picture of him somewhere in her stuff or something like that. But I still knew, and I knew who it was. It was pretty funny, though, because when they got out of her car and started walking towards the house, she looked up, saw me, screamed, threw up her hands, and started running towards me because she was so happy to see me. And he just didn't want to come into the house. But it was okay, because I don't have problems with that, man. This is not an issue of mine. But he did, and he thought he'd done something wrong. I find people with guilty consciences are often afraid of us. This kind of goes hand in hand for some reason. But yeah, so I was aware when she started sleeping with other people, and I had a pretty good idea of who it was and stuff like that, and I just they would do stuff like go to a Navy bar and wait for us to meet them there. And when we got there, they would be flirting with some guy or sitting on his lap or something like that. And man, they wanted us to get into a fight with that guy, hopefully in the bar in front of them. And I could never convince us to have that response. And so the first time it happened, we kind of set the tone for what was going to happen every time after that, unless somebody else acted to change it. And as we would just pick up the guy and his chair and walk outside with him and put him down and say, hey man, she's married. She's wearing a wedding ring. She wants me to be kicking your ass right now. And the bouncers knew about it, so most of them had figured that was a pretty good way for me to resolve it and let it happen. The only time I ever got clocked by a military bouncer in a military club was right before we tried to kill ourselves, and I just got super drunk by myself in the bar. You know, if they know you can handle it, you can walk into a military bar and hand the bartender $20, and they say, "What's that for?" Because drinks aren't that expensive there, and you say, "That's for you, dude. How many Long Islands can you fit in a pitcher?" And then you do shots, and you drink your Long Island. And I picked some guy who was probably relatively innocuous. But another guy I'd been talking to at the bar was like, "That guy's a dick and he stole my jacket." And so I started harassing this guy and just following him around the bar. And every time he tries to talk to anybody, I would just walk straight up to them and be like, "What the fuck are you doing talking to this guy? This guy is a piece of shit, dude. He's actually a thief. And he stole from this service member over here. You know, and here's the fucking problem." And I just kept harassing that guy. And he had the smart job of actually walking up to a bouncer who didn't look like a bouncer and starting to talk to her. So when I walked up to harass him, she walked me out of the bar, and I was like, "Yes, okay, you're right." And then again, I think that was us keeping us from doing anything worse, was just being that obnoxious until somebody came along that was just going to be fine. You know, it's very hard for us to be aggressive towards people who identify as female. It's just kind of, I think it's a wired in thing, really. I don't think it's necessarily something that people have to learn. I think it's kind of like the way you cringe with the soles of your feet, and you get those sort of nauseated feelings running up the inside of your legs when you see a child get hurt or something like that. You know, it's just sort of anathema on a biological level, and I think that's very rational. I think that the way the human species is set up, men have some biological advantages, and women have all of the other ones that nature could give anybody. And so I think when it comes down to it, they're actually better fighters than we are, because they're set up to be better fighters than we are. And I think that by and large, women are more physically powerful than men, intrinsically. And I think that's something that so many societies have been trying to erase for so long. You know, we all started out as Mother Earth worshippers. How many Japanese gods used to be female? All of the clergy used to be women. We all used to agree that women were the conduit between us and the divine. And that's just the truth. I don't think that's, I think there's evidence. We really try to say, not to say things that are conjecture, unless we clarify by saying these things are conjecture, and this is what we believe. I just think that that's a relevant, freestanding truth that you can find in any society that you care to examine with open eyes, barring a few absolutely misogynistic societies I can't think of right now that I just want to leave out there in case there are some out there that didn't start out. But I'm pretty sure that we worshipped women before we formed societies, or the concept of femaleness. And that's just, that part is our perspective. You know, but from our perspective, we're very gender fluid. It's hard to stay the same shape every day. You know, and sometimes it happens. We switch genders in the middle of having sex with partners. You know, so if that's hallucination, then somebody else came along for the ride, my friend. Which is possible. You know, us seeing people's faces in our heads when they're sleeping with our significant others does lend a lot of credence to the idea that we all live in each other's mental back pockets anyway. Because we do. It might be about time for us to pack it in. I seem to be losing track of it's okay, I'll talk to you later.